Adventures of Irvingman. Joe Winters is going to die today. He's being killed for a crime that he still insists he didn't commit. He's leaving some final instructions for his wife and his young son, who will grow up without a father and with the stigma of knowing his father was put to death as a criminal. Clark and Lois have come to the prison to talk to him.
More reporters? Do you want to know what it feels like to have less than a day to live?
We're reporters, but that's not what we came to see you about.
They want to give his wife $10,000 in exchange for his exclusive story about what happened the night of the crime that put him here.
You know I pleaded innocent, don't you?
You were tried and convicted.
$10,000.
To be given to your wife.
It's a deal.
Good.
Lots of innocent people have been tried and convicted throughout human history, Lois, and a lot of them died for things they didn't do. That's why killing people as a punishment is a stupid idea that we civilized folks can't seem to get out of our systems. He starts telling the story, but he seems confused about even the most basic details.
It's no use.
What do you mean?
I can't confess to something I didn't do.
Then why don't you tell us?
Because I don't know who killed Baker or how he did it, that's why.
Lois is cynical. She says he was tried and convicted and condemned and seems to imply that the legal system doesn't make mistakes. Clark says, hold on, something doesn't track here. If he did do it, why'd he have so much trouble remembering it?
Why don't you tell us your story?
What good would it do?
Well, you never know. Go ahead.
Neither Joe nor Lois gets what Clark is doing, but we do. Joe tells his story and his pulse remains steady. Either he's one of those swamis who can control all his vital signs, or he's telling the truth. He begins the story. He was a building inspector, and he was on a job at a site where W.T. Wayne, one of the biggest contractors in the city and one of the most influential men in the city, was putting up a building. Baker was Wayne's foreman, and he and Joe had been clashing.
It all started because he wouldn't wait for my inspections before pouring the cement. One day, Baker, I told you I wanted to see that steel reinforcement today.
I can't wait around for you county inspectors every time I'm ready to pour.
Right then, he should have gone to his supervisors and shut the project down. Those guys don't do something like that unless they're hiding something.
You'll wait for my inspection or I'll order all that cement torn out.
Oh, get out of here, Joe. You're making me mad.
Look, I'm warning you. I won't stand for you bypassing me like this. The next time it happens, I'll close the job down until it is inspected.
And stay out. But the next time I won't be so gentle.
His first mistake was saying he'll hold off until next time because he needs to go to the authorities and nail the guy this time. Now he can also go to the police because that's called assault, and there's 2 witnesses standing right there. Yeah, he didn't do either one. He may be innocent, but he's not too bright.
You see, I'd ordered him not to fill in the pillar forms with cement until I'd had a chance to put a gauge on the steel reinforcements. I got there that morning, and every form was full of cement he'd poured during the night. I was determined he wasn't going to get away with it this time, so I started out to look for him.
Not the best course of action, Joe. Kick this upstairs. You already know he's not going to listen to you, so you're just beating your head against the wall. When he goes this far, you step around the wall and go to your bosses and let them handle it. As I said, he's not the brightest star in the county inspector's galaxy.
Listen, Baker, I've had enough of this runaround.
Why don't you run along, little boy? I'm busy.
I'll run along all right. I'll run right to the county office and get this job stopped cold.
Get away from that phone.
Don't tell him, you nitwit. You've seen what he's willing to do to get around you and do whatever it is he has in mind, so you need to catch him by surprise. Predictably, Baker attacks him and they start fighting. Joe isn't very good at that either. I'm not the legal eagle, though I'm subscribed to him and watch him all the time and heartily recommend that you do too, but I don't see how anybody could convict Joe based on what those 2 guys walked in on. Joe is on his back next to the murdered Baker. The gun, which we'll learn does belong to Joe, is clear across the room. Baker was shot in the back. Based on the fact that those guys also heard the fight, and when they came in, both men were in the same place on the floor, there is no way Joe could have shot Baker in the back while the 2 men were scuffling.
What do you think happened, Joe?
I think they were using a cheap substandard grade of steel on the job.
You mean Wayne, the contractor?
If he could get away with it, it'd mean a fortune to him.
You think he was trying to kill you and shot Baker by mistake?
He shot Baker. He framed me for the murder. See, that way he got rid of both of us, the man who was doing his dirty work and the guy who knew about it.
Lois says, why didn't any of this come out at the trial? This is the sort of thing a jury needs to know to create reasonable doubt.
Well, even my lawyer didn't believe my story. See, he told me that if I made a fantastic charge like that against a man in Wayne's position, it'd just prejudice the judge and the jury against me.
In other words, he should have appealed his conviction immediately on the grounds that he had an incompetent attorney. I don't care if the lawyer believes the story or not. It's his job to give the client the best possible defense he can. If that means dragging a prominent citizen through the mud, so be it. This guy chickened out and sent his client to the electric chair instead. Joe has a legal right to a new trial. Clark and Lois should know that. In fact, a lot of people should have known that before things went this far.
Well, I believe you. I know you're telling the truth, and I'm going to try and help you.
What can you do in the little time I've got left?
Sometimes a great deal can be done in a few hours, especially if someone's trying hard.
I'm sure there's a good reason why we peeked in on those other guys. I wonder who he's calling.
Oh, hold it a minute. That'll be all for now, Marion.
This guy has spies in the state prison. Wouldn't it be easier just to do a good, honest job?
Clark, Kent, and Lois Lane, who are they?
He must read the Daily Bugle.
Newspaper reporters, eh? In a blue convertible, you say? Good, I've got it. Thanks. You'll get yours in the usual way.
A moment later,
Sure I can. Jobs like this are my specialty.
They're in a blue convertible, and I don't want them to get back here before Winters goes to the chair.
in the old X-Men comics, before he did something to himself and grew blue fur, Hank McCoy was not only the strong man of the team, he was the intellectual. He would frequently baffle Iceman Bobby Drake with his massive vocabulary. One of my favorite lines came when Bobby said something about Hank and his big words. Hank said, "Big words? I haven't the slightest glimmer of comprehension as to the significance of that obtuse reference." Anyway, one of Hank's recurring lines when the bad guys started trying to do him bodily harm was, "I have always believed that violence is the last resort of the incompetent." Violence is definitely this guy's go-to, and I think we can consider him a living embodiment of Hank's principle. And what do you want to bet the W stands for Wayne, and his name is Wayne Wayne? Take a guess what's in the lunchbox. I'll give you a hint. It starts with Dinah. From that, you might be able to figure it out. They drop him off somewhere.
Clark, just occurred to me. Didn't that man have a lunchbox when he got in the car?
Oh, I'm sorry, Lois. I'm afraid I didn't notice. I was trying to think of some way to help Joe Winters.
Well, anyway, he didn't have a lunchbox when he got out of the car.
Clark's X-ray eyes can see the bomb, and it's about ready to go off. Moments later, Lois couldn't figure out what kind of debris was raining down on her until she realized it was Clark.
Clark, are you all right?
Sure, I'm all right, Lois. Oh, would you toss me down that trench coat that's on the seat of the car? I can't very well come up the way I am.
Remember, kids, always keep a trench coat in your car for just such emergencies. Back at the planet, they enlist Perry and Jimmy to help dig into what Wayne was doing on that project that had Joe in such an uproar. That attempt on their lives is tacit proof that he has something to hide. Clark and Jimmy are at the shack where the killing happened.
What are we looking for anyway?
Just want to check and see if the shot that killed Baker came from outside. But there's just that double window there, and according to the coroner's report, it couldn't have come from that angle.
I think Jimmy just found your answer. That right there should be enough to get a new trial, but Lois and Perry have found even more. Wayne was using substandard steel in the project.
Lois, do you suppose you could get an interview with Wayne?
You bet I can. I want to know what his reaction will be when he hears an investigation of the construction of the overpass might be coming up.
Well, you be careful, young woman.
If Wayne is involved, just remember somebody tried to dynamite you earlier today.
This is the very middle of a big city. It's bright daylight, and I'm a big girl.
Actually, you're one of the shorter people in the room. But she's right, it's her job, and she's very good at it. And besides, if she gets into trouble, all she has to do is whimper, and Superman will be right there. The next thing Perry needs to do is call the governor, explain the situation, and request a stay of execution in preparation for a new trial. Under the circumstances, most any decent governor would go along.
Chief, I'll go with Miss Lane. I won't let anything happen to her.
And don't call me Chief, you young whippersnapper!
Since when? I know it was a running gag in the comics, but they've all been calling him Chief since day one, and he's never objected to it before. Suddenly, this episode, he has a bug up his butt about it. Just go with it.
You better wait here, Jim. He's likely to get suspicious if we go in the body, so to speak.
Well, okay.
Thanks.
His business card says Jimmy Olsen, long-distance bodyguard. How's he supposed to have her back from there? I get the feeling Lois didn't want him along, so she's having him keep busy doing nothing.
Why should the planet be interested in the amount of steel I bought for the overpass? Now, I don't want your opinions, I want facts. Find out what this is all about and do it fast. Well?
Miss Lane to see you from the Daily Planet.
Well, tell her I'm busy. Tell everybody I'm busy.
You're about to get your answer, dude. Lois says, I'm sure you have some time to talk about an investigation into the job you did on the overpass.
Investigation? What in heaven's name for?
Probably nothing to it. There seems to be rumors that cheap substandard steel was used in the reinforcing.
That's a lie.
Then why not let the Planet print some of the inspection reports? That should settle the whole matter.
He says, I can't. We didn't keep them. We destroyed them to make room in the files.
That's too bad, isn't it?
You're mistaken, Mr. Wayne. We didn't destroy those reports. Here they are.
Now we know why he's bald. She's so much help it makes him tear his hair out.
These are not the inspection sheets from the overpass. They're from a different deal. And don't tell me I'm mistaken again.
If I could just see...
I've had enough of this. There are no reports to be seen, and I have no more time to waste.
No good deed goes unpunished, Miriam. If she's smart, she'll have her own talk with Lois.
When I want anything from you, I'll ask for it.
But you were lying. Why?
What I do is no concern of yours.
Mr. Wayne, I've been with you for 6 years, and during that time I've seen you pull some pretty strange deals.
Business deals.
Well, sharp deals, let's say.
They can always come up with some kind of name for it to justify themselves.
But when it comes to using substandard materials in a building project...
Those are lies, Miss Cummings.
The structure might collapse. People would be killed. That would be murder, Mr. Wayne.
You use that word very easily. You're young and you're healthy. Take my advice and remain that way.
He's already committed one murder and tried to commit 2 others, and now he just offered to murder you. Maybe you should go to the police. Lois tells Jimmy she'd like to get her hands on those papers that Wayne tore up. Jimmy says, leave it to me.
Good day, Mr. Wayne. I'm James Olsen of the Little Giant Vacuum Cleaner Company. Glad to meet you. I'm prepared to offer you, absolutely free of charge, an amazing demonstration of our sensational machine. The Little Giant sweeps, cleans, buffs, polishes without fuss or bother. Listen to the hum of that motor. A powerful, 2-phase, double reciprocating electrical monster.
What do you mean?
Don't thank me yet, Mr. Wayne. Wait until you see with your own eyes the magic of the Little Giant.
Before Wayne realizes what's happening, Jimmy empties the wastebasket onto the floor and vacuums up the papers. That concludes today's demonstration of how easy it is to hoodwink men of low moral character.
Say, where did you get these?
She didn't. Jimmy did. But she's not about to tell him that.
Lois, the pieces are really beginning to fit together.
I know I already used it, but I have to do this.
Lois, the pieces are really beginning to fit together.
Clark took pictures of the reports that actually got filed with the county.
Obvious forgeries.
Then Winters was telling the truth.
And Wayne is probably the real killer.
Call the governor.
There's one way to clinch it, Lois. Get the district attorney's office on the phone and ask him to do some more work in the fingerprints on the murder gun.
But the testimony at the trial said the only prints on the gun were Winters.
Yes, but that was only on the gun. Sometimes people make mistakes. Ask them to get the prints on the bullets in the gun.
The police lab didn't already do that. Joe needs a new trial. He has more grounds than a British estate.
Now get me the governor's mansion in State City in Russian. Winters will be going to the chair in an hour, and he may be an innocent man. Yes? What? Oh, no.
What is it?
This storm is worse upstate. All the wires are down between here and State City.
I told you 3 hours ago to call him. Now look what happens when you don't listen to me and you wait too long. Will these people ever learn to listen to me?
Is it time?
Yes, Joe. It's time.
You know, the whole capital punishment, don't you love the antiseptic terms we have for it? Let's call it what it is, killing someone. The whole debate over whether it's cruel and unusual punishment or not is never going to be resolved. But I would like to think we can all agree on one thing. Making this man sit around for 12 hours with nothing to do but stare at the clock and wait to die is cruel. If you're going to do it, do it. Right now, there are people on death row who have been there for years. Locking someone up in a special area for those condemned to death, then leaving them there for who knows how long and saying, someday we're going to kill you, is both cruel and unusual. And for the pro-death penalty crowd, I'm sorry, but there's only one way to prevent that cruelty, and that's to eliminate the death penalty. Whether someone agrees with that idea or not, it's the only way to keep from engaging in that kind of psychological torture. While Joe walks the last mile, Superman flies to the governor's mansion to get a reprieve. Of course, his word is good enough for the governor, and he flies back to the prison with the reprieve. According to Perry's watch, he has 30 seconds. They're putting Joe in the chair now. My mistake, they're putting his shadow into the chair. I won't go into all the things they did wrong, such as not shaving his head, since I understand it's difficult to shave a shadow. The warden starts to throw the switch. Sadly, even though Superman stopped the electrocution, Joe's shadow was fatally injured when pieces of the wall fell on him. Joe Winters is free and Wayne is in jail. For a brief moment, all's right with the world.
Cully, you were right about those bullets, Mr. Kent. They were covered with Mr. Wayne's fingerprints.
And his secretary talked plenty.
Why didn't she talk earlier? She could have saved Winters' life and Superman wouldn't have had to break a wall.
I wonder how a real smart man like Mr. Wayne could turn out to be so stupid.
Perhaps he wasn't so smart, Jim.
You know, I bet you if I'd really tried, I could have sold him that vacuum cleaner.
Anything's possible when you're dealing with a dim bulb who has no morals. Honestly, I know it's the early 1950s and some things have changed, but I would love to see a lawyer's take on this episode. I have no legal training at all, and I can see tons of issues with Joe's trial. Plus, the instant someone tried to kill Clark and Lois, Perry should have called the governor and demanded a reprieve so they could investigate why. Everybody dropped the ball here. The police lab did a halfway job. Joe's lawyer threw him to the wolves. Police investigators should have found that secret panel in the course of examining the scene. The only two people here who did their jobs right were the governor when he signed the reprieve and the warden when he made to throw the switch. And he didn't want to do his job right, so he was glad when Superman interrupted him. Not as glad as Joe was, but glad. The first thing he did when he got off work was go buy himself a new vacuum cleaner. Until next time. Video by Harry Harrison. Audio by Morris Morrison. Wardrobe and makeup by Alice Allison. Your announcer has been Peter Peterson.